Don't forget to click that subscribe and bell icon to receive a notification each time I upload a new video. Hi everyone, it's Mike here and welcome to another wet and windy day in the UK. It's been raining solidly since I got up at about 7:30 this morning and it still hasn't stopped, and it's almost 10 AM. So today, after going through some of the comments on my recent YouTube videos, a lot of you have asked, well, I say a lot, a few of people have asked when I'm going to be doing page 9 in the volume of the dolls. So I thought, seeing as I'm on my own today, Ian's out delivering one of his machines over in Lincolnshire, so he's going to be out and gone until at least 4 o'clock this afternoon. I've got plenty of time to sit down and have an undisturbed play. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. Okay, so I've turned to the next available double page spread in my volume of the dolls. I'm just pinned down the corners just to stop them from flicking up, so I've got a little bit of a more solid workspace, if you like, to play with. So they're just going to be held down there to stop the pages from flipping up. So what I've done is I've gone through my paper collection and I've got 2 pieces of cardstock which I've cut down to round about the same size as the pages. Now these are from a 12 by 12 paper set from a company called Stamperia Mechanical Fantasy. So that's what these pages are from. So they've just been cut down. But I've also got a couple of pages of old or vintage newspaper adverts, and these are from 1888. So, and I'm going to use those as well. So I'm going to lay out one above the other, but I'm going to cut one down. You'll see what I've got in mind in a second. But I don't want to stick these down just as they are. I want to distress the edges a little bit. So I'm going to spend just a little bit of time just tearing down to get rid of those straight lines that I created when I put it through my trimmer. So this is going to take me a couple of minutes to do. And I know watching somebody tear paper is equivalent to watching paint dry or watching somebody dry paint with a heat tool or whatever. It's not very interesting at all. So what I'll do is I'm going to do this to both of these 2 pieces. So I will go off, do that, and then when I've got both pieces all raggedy and torn, I'll be back. Okay, so I've got both of those 2 panels all torn out, and now I'm going to go around the edges with a little bit of distressing, just to kind of dirty them up a little bit more than what they are already. I kind of like the kind of pale bluish colour behind the writing in this, so I think the 2 colours that I'm going to use, or going to inform my colour palette for this page, is going to be kind of the browns and that kind of pale tealy, almost kind of like duck egg colour. I'm not going to go too mad, I want some of that roughness of the page edges to still show through. I'm just going to lightly tint those edges. Get rid of the stark white. Okay, that should do me. That should do. Just pop that distress ink away, get rid of the bits, and then we'll just get it glued down. So I'm just going to use some very inexpensive acrylic glue. This is a clear acrylic glue that I picked up from my local craft store over the weekend. It's not very good. The fine point applicator nib is way too big, so it comes out in massive dollops. Okay, so we'll stick that down on there like that. So just give it a push. As you can see, the glue's spurting out everywhere, and it's not nice stuff at all. The only reason I'm using it is because I'm just using it up rather than just throw it away and waste it. I wouldn't buy this out of choice. I bought it just to see what it was like, because it was, like I said, inexpensive. It was less than £1 for this little tub. But they didn't have the one that I normally use in. I had to make do, as you do. So, alright, let's get that stuck down. There is a little bit of wiggle room with it, but like I said, it's not very good. For those of you that are interested, it's Dovecraft Ultimate Craft Glue. Ideal for all your creative projects. Yeah. Made in Taiwan. And when it gets on your fingers, it's horrible. And it kind of reactivates with water as well, so you can wash it off, which is a good thing. Okay, so we've got those 2 little pages down. So I'm not even going to bother waiting for it to dry. I'm just going to get crack straight on and just start adding some of that brown distress ink around the edges of the page. Just to kind of blend it all in again. I'm not using the archival distress ink this time, I'm actually using the water-based one. There we go. That should do. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for a minute or two. I'm going to go and reheat my coffee because it's gone cold. So I'll let that set for about 10 minutes or so, and then I'll come back to it. Oh, definitely cold, nothing worse. Okay, so back with the coffee, and while I was waiting for that candle to finish drying, I just pretty much did the same thing with the advert sheets. I just tore out around some of the adverts just to create a kind of interesting shape for those paper dolls to either sit or stand on. So again, what I'm going to do next is this time I'm going to use matte medium, because I really don't like that glue at all. I'm just probably going to end up throwing it in the bin because it's horrible. Now then, that glue, matte medium stuck. I always have to do this. Just clear the nozzle out. There we go. It always forms a kind of barrier to stop the air from getting in, which is a good thing. Okay, so matte medium, which I should have done to start off with. That'll teach me for experimenting with new glues. So we'll start off with this side, and then just put a layer of that glue down. Now, because I've used the Tim Holtz water-based dyes, they probably will move. The inks, so we'll just layer that over the top so that when I start to glue them down, there we go, it'll probably move some of that ink colour as well, which will help to blend in. Okay, so let's just add some on here. Make sure we get plenty down. And then, like I should have done with the other one, let's get some on the back. See that brown coming off? That's the ink. That's what happens when you use Tim Holtz's water-based distress rather than the archival. So you end up getting a tint as well. Okay, let's lay this down. It's better. See, should have done that on the other page, but that's okay. Okay, you're probably wondering why I just didn't rip that paper at the top up here. Let me just drop that in water and explain while I'm cleaning up. Right, so you're probably wondering why I've wasted that bit of paper underneath the adverts. Well, this is an old book and the pages aren't exactly sturdy. I've already had to glue 2 or 3 pages together just to get them to the right kind of thickness where they're not going to warp and wrinkle too much. So adding an extra thickness of card underneath just adds an extra layer of stability for whatever it is that you want to do. So that's the reason why I didn't cut that paper. So that layer underneath being cardstock and then the paper over the top is going to add that thickness to the page. That's why I did it. Okay, let's get it dried off, and then once we're dry we can start adding a little bit more colour. See, my hands are still tacky with that horrible, cheap, nasty glue. I might just throw this straight in the bin actually and get it and just save me a job. Okay, so what I've done once that dried is I've just gone around the edges again with that distressing just to kind of add a bit more of that darkness around the pages. So I did say I wanted to bring some of this kind of duck eggy kind of blue colour back into the page. So I want to do a kind of like, I won't say a whitewash, but I want to do like a dry brush effect down the page just to kind of give it a bit of a, let's just say like a shabby chicy kind of feel. So I've gone into my paint, I've brought out my indigo blue acrylic matte, and this is a colour called Townhouse Teal. So this should go rather nicely with those dark kind of brownish colours, and I'm not going to use a huge amount. Like I said, I wanted to dry brush this onto the page, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to add just some hints of that blue into the page, top and bottom. But like I said, kind of dry brush. Just kind of where it's catching. Same at this side. See, that backing paper has kind of got that kind of shabby, chicy kind of feel to it because of its grungy kind of nature. So it works as a good, kind of accompaniment without getting a bit too dirty, if you know what I mean. And you can afford to get a little bit more of the paint around the edges because that's kind of like an area that is going to kind of get left, so you can just kind of decorate those a little bit more. Just grab the brush and just drag the paint over the top just to kind of give it that grungy but shabby chicy kind of feel. And I've just put my finger in the paint there. I'm so clumsy today, it's unbelievable. Alright, let's get rid of that excess. get dried off. Okay, now those pages are dry, that blue paint has dried a little bit. I want to try and just accentuate some of these columns that are in this newspaper advert a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I've got my Stabilo All pencil and I'm just going to really lightly just go up and kind of accentuate the areas between the columns. And then just go across the top a little bit, like so, and then do the same thing, just follow the line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my water brush and I'm just going to activate that brush. Stabilo Alls are water soluble. You can just push and manoeuvre the colour. The more colour you add, the fainter it gets. And it kind of creates like almost like a little 3D effect on the columns, almost like they're overlaying each other. Not necessarily a kind of drop shadow effect, but just gives it a little bit extra. Just activate that one. You can just leave the water to dry, or you can just keep playing with it and blend it in if you think it's a bit too dark. And then like up here, you can just push it and it just kind of blends away whilst creating that kind of little shadowy effect. The trick with these is just play with it until you kind of get used to how it works and what you can do with it. And like I said, the more you play, the more it will blend away. Like so. Let's get that dried. Okay, so that black, where the dividing lines, is now dry for me to start adding on my characters onto the page. So what I've done is I've used, obviously I've got 3 of the Tim Holtz Paper Dolls, but what I've also done is I've started using up some of these transparent wings that you get. I know he does like the butterfly ones and dragonfly ones now, so these are the original ones which I've had kicking around for absolutely ages, so I thought, well, why not use up the paper dolls with the wings, make them a little bit more delicate and add them to the backs of the characters. So all I've done is just I've added a small drop of white PVA glue, and all I'm going to do just to kind of stick the characters down is just do the same again, just add a drop of white PVA, a little bit on the foot there, doesn't really need a lot, and then just flip them over. I've left these to dry a little while because the wings will move, so the idea is to stick those down like so. Because the white PVA will dry clear, you can just kind of wipe it away. It's nice and delicate. So we've got her standing on top of that one there. Then we'll bring in the one that I like to call Buster. Or today I do anyway. Just add a tad of glue to the back. And he can then be resting on there. Like so. Just twist his wings a little bit. Just wet that glue a little bit. Because it goes all over your hands. It's the worst part. The worst part about doing art journals is getting the glue all over your hands. And then the last one, I've added, like I said, a little bit of glue just onto that wing. That sounded like Mr. Bentley getting up. Hello you. Have you woke up? After he went out for his WLK this morning, he decided he was going to go back to bed. Since we made him go out in the wet. He wasn't happy. He just stood looking at me now as if to say, what time is it? So I think I might actually do, I'm going to stick him down there, right in the middle of the page. Just push it down and then put a little bit of pressure on it, and then I'm going to have to leave this to just grab and set for a good quarter of an hour, 20 minutes. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of weight on the feet, just on there, and then something a bit heavy on that one, and on her, just to make sure that they do actually grab. Let's see what we got on there as well. Maybe one more pot. Trying to see what's heavy. That's heavy. There we go. That should theoretically. Let's move that one over there and hold those down. Right. Time for me to knock off and have a spot of a lunch. Mr. Bentley and I are going to have tuna sandwiches today. So I'll go have my lunch, leave that to dry, and then by the time we finish lunch and come back, they should have sufficiently set to the page to be able to manoeuvre and carry on and add my quote for the page. Okay, so enough time's passed. Now while it was drying, I also went in with some clear gesso and just very carefully painted over the top of the three characters, just to get rid of that shine on the bodies. I've left the shine on the wings. There's not a lot you can really do about getting rid of shine on acetate. So I decided just to leave it. So, but that's what the little things look like now. So all I'm going to do is just add a little bit of grounding for him, just about there. A little bit of shadow under there and a little bit of grounding just underneath her feet there. Get some water onto my brush. Don't want a huge amount of water, just enough to create a kind of shadow where he's stood, and another little bit just kind of behind to give it a little bit just there, and just a teeny bit just underneath her feet there. Just to add that kind of little bit of grounding, just a bit more I think, just under there. just gives it just that little bit extra. So it actually looks as though they're stood on something. Okay, so now we've got that. Let's just dry up that bit of water. And I need to add a quote for this. So for that, let's just put this book to one side. I just printed off a quick phrase that came to mind on a piece of parchment paper. So I'm just going to quickly just snip that out. I'm not going to go mad by cutting it out exactly just yet. Put that over to one side. I want two pieces. So I'm going to just, now that I've got it smaller, I can handle it easier. And then just cut across the top. And then I can just snip off at little angles just to make it a little bit different. So if you haven't got a computer, get yourself one of those label makers, because you can pretty much do the same sort of thing with a little label maker. Okay, clear that out of the way. So bring that back in, and before we stick it down, just grab some distress ink, and we can just add just a little bit of a dark edge to it. Now I've used parchment paper because it's off-white. It's kind of like an ivory colour, a creamy colour, which kind of works well with the colour of the old pages. So we can stick that about there, I think. When I finish this, it's probably going to be just about time for me to take Mr. Bentley out for his WALK. He's been very patient today. He's hardly made any noises at all, have you? Probably just hear him wandering around with his collar. Need a little bit of glue, so we'll just use a tiny bit of PVA. Don't need a lot. Let's put some on the back. And will that fit over there? Probably not, so maybe just put them both. Yeah, actually, let's do it towards the bottom over there. What was I saying about him being a good lad and not making too much noise? Yes, I'll be there in a second. Bit of glue there. Ooh. Bit of drop C. Actually, let's put it just by his foot. Maybe down a tad. There you go. And I think I'm quite happy with that. Maybe just a few splatters. So I'll need a bit of gesso. A small brush. I don't know where my fan brush has gone. My little fan brush seems to have disappeared, but that's okay. A little bit of water. And then we'll just use that. People always say to me, you know, they don't understand the splatters until they actually do it. And then it all makes sense. There we go. So let's just clear that up a little bit. That'll do. So there you go. There's page 9 of my volume of the dolls. So let your art be your light through the dark times ahead. And for what it's worth, I hope that everything that's going on in the world, and particularly with this virus, that it's not too dark and things do get better very quickly. It still hasn't stopped raining. I hope you enjoyed watching that art journal page come together. If you did, please remember to give this video a thumbs up, and if you'd like, share the video with your friends. But if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. That's all from me for now. I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye for now. I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of my angels, because without you, these videos would not be possible. Thank you.